In just a few short days, the Georgia Bulldogs will welcome the Alabama Crimson Tide here in Atlanta in the SEC Championship. The two titans of the sport meeting again in Atlanta. You know a little something about this game. Former Alabama wide receiver Slade Bolden joining us, national champion, never lost in Atlanta, a second home. I think I saw something. They're 16-0 under Nick Saban in Atlanta. So tell me how, you bounce back from that Iron Bowl. Like, what's the mental side of that? You did this in 2021. Close Iron Bowl, 4 overtimes. You score a touchdown. You go out and blow out Georgia. How does this team do that this year in the same game?
Well, like I said before, I mean, every time we play in Auburn, it doesn't matter what the record is, whether we're much better than they are or it's pretty evenly matched. They can be 6-5, we can be 9-1, just like it was this year and in 21. Every time we play at Jordan-Hare, there's always some just crazy scenario that goes on, whether it's during the game or at the end of the game. It always boils down to the last few minutes of the game where who's going to come out victorious. And that's kind of exactly what happened in 21, and it's what happened in this last game. And the best way that we're going to be able to come back from that, knowing that I know, like, we won the game, yeah, it's great, but obviously we didn't play to our best ability, and we didn't play what we've been showing since Texas or the USF game. We've just increasingly gotten better each game, and I know that going into this game that the mindset is going to be just, we got to execute. We got to do exactly what we know that we can do. We got to have the right game plan. Practice has got to be almost perfect. We got to go out there, and that's the thing is, like, if we practice the way we play, we usually win. Like, we usually go out there and handle business. So practice this week is going to be very important. Save's going to get them boys right. He's going to have the right mindset, knowing that we're underdogs. We're not supposed to win this game. Georgia is undefeated. They're going in the third year of, possibly winning another championship. And obviously, like, we got to get our lick back. I mean, that's essentially what it is. Like, they took away a national championship from us in 2021. I still have, scars from that game. I still think about it, once a week at least. So I know that there's a lot of guys on this roster right now that still have that bad taste in their mouth. So I know that the mindset's going to be, okay, we can't let this happen again. And I believe that if we do come out there and we play our game, Milroe plays his game, we have fun, and we, as always, come out victorious in Atlanta, our second home, I believe that we'll show out and do a good job.
You said it. The Iron Bowl's always kind of funky. Jordan-Hare's got that voodoo magic. It's one of the most underrated places in the country to play. Obviously, we are all from the South, so we know how special that place is. But it's similar to like NFL games. Alabama is never going to apologize for beating Auburn, regardless of how it's done. And listen, Georgia struggled a little bit with Georgia Tech in their respective rivalry week. So, I think you could throw both of those out of the conversation when we're talking about Alabama, Georgia. So let's talk about Alabama, Georgia. Georgia struggled with defending the run against Auburn. Alabama also struggled defending the run against Auburn. But listen, one of these teams has a very, very dynamic runner at the quarterback position, and that is Jaylen Milroe, who is, a Cam Newton light. He is absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. What can Alabama do on an X's and O's level to kind of attack and stretch this Georgia defense on the edge, which we saw, Auburn do and give Georgia a very similar scare in Jordan-Hare earlier in the season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Georgia defense is as good as they were in 21. I mean, there was, multiple draft picks. Now, I will say this. So the Georgia defense is good, and I'm not going to take that away from them. Obviously, we got to establish the run game. I mean, if we can show that we can play fast and physical throughout the game, that will definitely slow down that Georgia defense, and that is what we did in 21. We were able to convert on third downs, keep the drives going, play fast, and that allowed us to put up points on the board. What we didn't do in the championship game was we could convert third downs. We had some penalties that hurt us. We had some bad injuries, whatever, but that's no excuse. We still should have, played our game and won. But yeah, I mean, as long as we establish a run game, and I think kind of when we talked about the LSU Bama match, I was like, Miller's got to go out there and play his game and have fun. And I think if he does that, whether it's go into the first progression to the second progression. And then if it's not there, take it off and run it, because that's just his game. And then making plays with his feet and making plays out of the pocket and throwing it downfield, because he's got receivers now that I feel like they have, more trust in each other, knowing that, if I get open and if it's a scramble play, I'm going to be able to, Milroe's going to be able to make something happen. And as long as we do that, I believe that, and, obviously the O-line's got to do their job, make the right calls, make the right adjustments when it comes to that Georgia defense, either whether they're blitzing or, they're running different types of fronts. I believe that as long as we have a good communication between Milroe and the O-line, we establish a run game, and then we just make plays that, that sometimes we're bust at the beginning. But if Milroe can get out of the pocket and make plays with his feet, or also throw it downfield out of the pocket, I believe that that's going to separate us and continue to have those long drives and continue to get down the field and put points in the red zone. And I believe that's kind of essentially what needs to be happening in the game.
Yeah, listen, when this Alabama offense as a whole and this team really started to look better, it's when Tommy Rees kind of let Jaylen Milroe go and say, be the athlete that you are. That's the best aspect of who you are. And that's when he's playing like that, he's the best player on this offense. And I think, Alex mentioned it briefly talking about the struggles with Georgia Tech. But if you look at the games that Georgia struggled with this year, and not huge struggles, but, the offensive have had success. It's Missouri. It's Auburn, and it's Georgia Tech. And they've all had some mobile quarterbacks that could run it a little bit, but none of them can even hold a candle to what Jaylen Milroe do. And a lot of it was designed runs. And we saw a lot of those designed runs against LSU and how much success Alabama had. I think Milroe ran it 20 times. So I'm looking forward to them using Milroe as a weapon in this game, trying to get on the outside, utilizing that great offensive line that they have. And I think that's where the game's won, because I do think Georgia's offense is great. So making this kind of a smash mouth game, controlling possession and stuff like that. First of all, I think this is going to be an unbelievable game. I really do think it's going to come down to the last possession. And we've seen Milroe just make that play against Auburn. Carson Beck's been great at the end. And I just think it might be one of those games where it's smash mouth, but whoever has the ball first and can the quarterback make a play at the end.
Yeah. And when you have a quarterback like Jaylen Milroe, as a defensive coordinator, it's a nightmare, right? So as Georgia's defensive coordinator, you can call it the right scheme, whether it's cover one, cover zero, and everybody's locked up. You still have to worry about Jaylen getting out of the pocket and also, basically making plays on his own. So you have to still worry about that. You can call a great game plan, you can have a great scheme, but you still have to account for Jaylen using his feet and also making plays down the field outside the pocket. So it's going to be tough, not only for our defense as well, because Georgia's offense is great. We have to call a great game plan. And, I don't think Carson Beck is as mobile as Milroe, but it's going to be a tough job for Georgia's defense coordinator, calling the right game plan, the right scheme to match up with our receivers, and also to try to fill the run gaps, because we do have a good run game when we get going. And you still can do all that. You can still call a great scheme and still have to account for Milroe, who is just an unbelievable athlete and can make plays with his feet.
Yeah, on the flip side of things, you mentioned it. Georgia's offense is legit. This is the best receiving core, in my opinion, that the Georgia Bulldogs have had, at least in my lifetime, and maybe ever. It's going to be tough to stop, but style makes fights. This Georgia offensive line it could be the best in the country, but this Alabama defense is for real. Their secondary has 3 or 4 guys who are going to play on Sunday, another 2 or 3 in the trenches that are going to be playing on Sundays, led by Dallas Turner and Kool-Aid McKinstry. This is what I'm really excited for. Obviously, we just talked about Jaylen Milroe versus Georgia's defense. But if we're talking about the strengths of these two teams, it's going to be strength on strength. And Georgia's strength is their offense, particularly their passing offense. And Alabama's defense is their strength, and particularly their secondary, I would say. So that's what I'm excited to see, is how Carson Beck and Bobo are going to attack this Alabama defense, which is led by, 2, 3, 4 first-round picks, some in the secondary, some rushing the passer. So can they get after Carson Beck? And this Georgia offensive line has been stout. I don't remember which game it was, but Chase brought up a point weeks ago and how, Georgia didn't give up a single pressure. I think it was against Ole Miss, a single pressure against Ole Miss. Can Alabama get pressure? And when they don't get pressure, You know, you can't. You're a wide receiver. You can't cover guys forever. Eventually, somebody's going to get open. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We got guys like Chris Braswell. You got Dallas Turner. You got Justin Boybe, who has honestly really shined this past year. And yeah, once you get pressure on the quarterback, it is tough for DBs to like you said, hold on and carry the receivers as long as they can. But when that clock starts to dwindle down, when the QB's sitting in the pocket, he's having pressure, he's going to have to get that ball out. And when there's pressure, that can result in a lot of turnovers. And I think that will be a huge key to success for our defense. If we can get turnovers, we can get picks, if we can get strip sack fumbles, I think that would, because at the end of the day, penalties is what kills teams and turnovers is what kills teams. If we can win the turnover battle and if we can win the penalty battle, I think we're good. So, yeah, we do need to get pressure on him, make Carson Beck uncomfortable, because he probably hadn't really been in many stressful situations this year. Yeah, he's played some good defenses, but I don't think he's played anybody like our defense. So if we put stress on the quarterback, allow him to not make the most smart plays or the most smart decisions, that can also give us a leg up when it comes to getting some turnovers, which will help our offense get back on the field and score points.
Yeah, Slade, I love you, buddy. I hear Knox over there going crazy. Yeah, am I right? Yeah, the dog over there is going crazy, man. And it's funny because
the dogs are barking, baby.
Yeah, the dogs are barking. I don't know if that's a sign, but then Roscoe hears him through the computer, and now he starts barking. So I've got my mic muted. But I really appreciate you joining us today. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about a former dog, Jalen Carter. Should the Falcons have taken him with the 8th overall